All right, Ethan, here comes the good stuff. This is what everybody wants to hear. I will admit this has changed for me as the season has approached. Um, I'm not asking for records. We're not going to do that. But around the seeding that you think this team will finish. Obviously, I know that we haven't seen the team. We can't go off much here, but the people want it. And also, it's
Yes.
before the season. So let's have a little bit of fun. What do you think? Where do you think the Spurs will finish, and what do you think their trajectory is for this season? At least around where they'll finish.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the 11th or 12th seed is about where we will finish. And I think that's a good aim. I think if we're lucky, we can get into that play-in spot, but I just don't want to be overly ambitious yet because we still need to see how Victor's going to fit within the system. Have a lot of injury concerns with a couple different guys. Um, but at the same time, I would not be surprised in the slightest, Jude, if we were like locked in at that 9-10 spot. Because I think a lot of people are sleeping on this team. Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Zach Collins. Like, this is a very solid team with a lot of depth now, with a lot of guys ready to prove a lot of people wrong. So, and when you add Victor Wembanyama on top of that with a healthy Devin Vassell, based on what we saw from Keldon Johnson, I mean, we're on the rise. I don't think we're going to have another season like last year. I don't think it's going to be tough to watch. I think it'll be very competitive basketball. But just for the sake of the Western Conference is so stacked, it's so set with so many veterans and guys that are ready to win now. Yeah, for that reason, I can't guarantee a 9 to 10, but I don't think it's out of the question. And I could absolutely see us continue to get better as the season progresses. I think the best Spurs basketball will be in March, April, not necessarily October, November, December.
It's so funny you mentioned that, Ethan, because what I had written down for my season preview, or this is the season preview. Sorry, I'm having
Yep,
some
gotcha.
trouble right now.
No, it's
So
cool.
with my notes, I was trying to pull them up. Is 9 and 10. That
Mm.
is what I have come to. I think, but I'm going to say 9 through 11. That's going to be my final answer. I came into this and I was going to say 9 through 10, but I think I'm gonna. I don't think I really don't think it's going to be the 12 though, Ethan. I
Mm.
just these interviews, the demeanor, and I know they're just interviews, but like, and this is the other thing that ties into Keldon. When you take in the context of last year's team, as we've said at nauseum on this show, but seriously, the injuries to Jeremy, the injuries to Devin, the makeshift makeup of the roster. I mean, like there were
Yeah,
guys on the team like Stanley Johnson, then he wasn't. I mean, you picked up Mamu late, Champagnie, Charles Bassey.
Roby,
It was right, exactly.
Romeo.
It was a revolving door. There's so many people we forget about. Um, and I just when I listen to these guys and I think about Greg Popovich and Brett Brown too on this staff as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah,
Um, and I think and I think about Wembanyama. That's the other thing. You know, I think we want to be we don't want to be too over the top. We don't want to jump out and say like, "Oh, it's going to be the same thing as David and Timmy. It's just going to be an immediate next year playoffs 50 wins, right?" Like we don't want to say that cuz it's not
no,
the same makeup.
yeah,
And also it's not the same team as well, you know, with the way that David's injury went.
yes.
Um but with all of that being said, Ethan, I just think that we've got more talent than a lot of Spurs fans are giving us credit for. And when these guys play together, on top of the jumps that they are all going to take because they are all still so young,
Hmm. Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
gonna we're gonna beat some people. We're gonna. I mean, it's really not that crazy to say. So I looked at the standings from last year. The 9 and 10 teams were 42 and 40 and 40 and 42. So that would mean, just for the sake of conversation, obviously the records are going to be different this year around the league. Um, and a lot of teams have added more talent. But even with that being said, I mean, that's about 18, 20 more wins. And I know that's a lot, but Devin Vassell didn't play 50 last year.
Yeah,
And Sohan didn't play 24. So when you add those two guys in, if you think about last year's team, if it's fully healthy, I don't think that's okay. I was about to ask you if you think about last year's team fully healthy, would you have won that many more games, which I disagree. That wouldn't have happened. But
No.
when you add in Wembenyama,
Mm-hmm.
that's where I think I think it's a little bit more realistic than we're giving ourselves credit for. Maybe mid-season they're resting him, and and we're sitting here and they're going to be in the lottery again. But with what I've seen at media day, dude, I don't think that's going to be the case. I just don't think it's going to be the case. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of talent in the West, but the combination of having a fully healthy roster surrounded by talent, coinciding with jumps because they're young players on top of having Greg Popovich.
Mm-hmm.
You can say I'm a biased Spurs fan with arguably the most touted prospect since LeBron James.
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable thing. Competing for the play-in and the 9-10 seed.
And
I could
one
see
more
us
point.
missing out. Like I said,
Yeah.
I said 9 to 11, but I really think we're going to be in those last two play-in spots. I really do.
I really think it depends on injuries and resting guys, like you said. But I will say this. You mentioned all the guys that we've added and the improvements from guys. We basically also added like 4 other players because we saw the improvement from Malachi Branham and Jeremy Sohan from game 1 to game 82. They were completely different players in the second half of last season. So they're coming into this year where that's their base. How well they played last year, that's their base. And they're probably going to take another jump because they had a full
Exactly.
off season.
They're
So that's
19, 20.
basically 2 more guys, right, that we didn't have last year. And then also Champagny and Bassie, we didn't have until like the second half of last year. And they also improved. And Bassie got hurt. But Champagny continued to improve, and we saw what he did in summer league. So those are 2 role players that we basically
4-year
didn't have last
contracts
year.
also.
Mm-hmm. So that's 4 dudes right there. Plus Chetty Osman, who's a really nice guy off the bench. Devonte Graham had a full season in the Spurs organization, so maybe he's going to be a little bit better. Plus Blake Wesley, who knows what he's going to bring to us. So I wouldn't be surprised, Jude, if we ended up playing a lot better, like you said, and we're 9-10. Wouldn't be surprised. I'd be pleasantly happy. But I will say this is my final point. If that doesn't happen, I won't be upset. The only thing I want to happen, guaranteed, this has to happen, is we have to win the season series against the Houston Rockets. That's all I want. It's all I want as a person. We can finish last. We can be 15th in the West. But if we beat them, if we sweep them, the dream has come true.
Yeah, that's going to be, one of my closest friends is going to the second game of the season against the Rockets.
Oh, mama.
So I mean, look, we add Wemby and they add Dylan Brooks. I'm not saying it's I'm not saying it's the same thing at all. I'm just saying like there's a lot of juice added there. I know they got Van Vliet and Jock too, but like Dylan Brooks is I don't know what to call him. A trouble starter. Let's put it that way. In games, he likes to start trouble, and then you got Wemby and Sohan. I mean, you got Wemby, which means Sohan and Zach are now on high alert. What's the over/under on the fights in the Rockets Spurs games this year, dude?
I don't even think it's going to be Sohan and Zach, dude. I got money on Keldon pulling a LeBron. Keldon and he were into it at the end of their last meet.
That's right. And they'll be matched up against each other probably.
Stoic Keldon, he's coming up to him pregame. He's doing that LeBron James hands on hips, doing this crap with his head, and then Dylan's going to hit Keldon in the nuts, and he's going to get kicked out of the game. That's going to happen. Keldon's about to drop 45, career high.
Yes, let's get Dylan Brooks ejected. That's what I
want. Honestly, brawl, all out brawl. I need Malice at the what's the
Toyota Center?
Malice at the Toyota Center.
Or the Frost Bank Center.
The Frank Center. The Frost Center.
Frank Irwin. Serge Ibaka Rice was on my mind. Oh my gosh.
Always.